Welcome to the Hyborian Keep. I'm Old Man Hyborian. Here we review tales of Robert E. Howard's greatest character, Conan the Barbarian. Today we'll be reviewing Robert Jordan's pastiche novel, Conan the Invincible. This won't be some fluffy review. It'll be an old man's honest opinion. And just as a heads up, there will be spoilers. So I don't want you to go crying to your mommy if I say something that spoils them for you. If you don't want the spoilers, go to the summary at the end. And if you enjoy the video, please like and subscribe. With that, let's get after it. Before we start with Robert Jordan's Conan the Invincible, I would just like to say that if you want a true Conan experience, the best way to get that is to read Robert E. Howard's Conan before you read any pastiche novels. And one of the best ways to do that is the Del Rey set. It has all of Robert E. Howard's Conan stories in 3 volumes. This is one of the best ways to read and understand Conan the way that Robert E. Howard intended him to be. So let's talk about Robert Jordan's Conan the Invincible. This came out in 1982, and it was the first novel produced by Tor Books. This was an exciting time to be a Conan fan, because all the hype around Conan the Barbarian movie, there was lots of different merchandise floating around that had Conan in it. So the 80s was a pretty good time for Conan. So this book here, it has 2 necromancers in it. One is named Aminar, and the other one is named Inhibiton. The story surrounds the search for this gem that contains the soul of Aminar. So it starts off, Conan, he's just a young man, 18 years old, shortly after the Tower of the Elephant. He's in Shadazar, and this necromancer, Inhibiton, tracks him down because he wants to hire Conan to go steal this jewel. And he's offering him 10,000 gold pieces if he goes and does this. So Conan, he takes the job, and he has to get into the palace of the King of Zamora, because the King of Turan had gifted the King of Zamora 5 jeweled pendants and 5 dancing girls. And one of these pendants was holding this jewel. So Conan, he goes at night, breaks into the palace, and he gets into the room of one of these dancing girls. There he discovers that the pendants aren't all together. Each individual dancing girl has a pendant on, and they're scattered throughout the palace. So this particular dancing girl, she wants to escape, so Conan promises to take her away if she can gather the 5 pendants, and he'd be back tomorrow night to take the pendants and take her away to freedom. So Conan leaves. Later that night, Aminar, he dispatches his minions to go and get the pendants because he wants the jewel back, because it's important to him as a way to control this demon god that he has held. This demon god is named Marath Amini, and the Eater of Souls. So the reason that Aminar is able to control this demon is because he has removed his soul and put it into this gem. So it's important that the demon doesn't get his soul and able to wrestle control away from the necromancer. So the next day, Conan finds out that the jewels have been stolen along with the dancing girls. So he takes off to try to track it down. He's heard some intel that it was a group of pilgrims that took it. So as he's traveling, doing his investigation, he comes to this well out in the desert, and there's these 3 guys there that have this red-headed woman that Conan had met before a few days earlier in the tavern. So he asks the 3 men if they've seen these pilgrims, and they decide to rob Conan, which was a poor idea. So after Conan dispatched them, he released this woman, and she's like some kind of a nut bar, because immediately she attacked Conan. So Conan's fighting for his life, gets her under control, kind of dangles her down a well, makes her take an oath that she won't harm him and stop bad-mouthing him, which she does. So after the struggle, Conan's going to go on his way, but this redhead, whose name is the Red Hawk, and she's a noted bandit of the area, says that she knows where the pilgrims went, and that if Conan followed her, she'd lead them to him. So off they go, and as they approach the location where these pilgrims are supposed to be, the Red Hawk, she takes off on the horse, screaming and hollering. So Conan tries to track her down, and then all of a sudden he's surrounded by a bunch of bandits. So it wasn't the pilgrims that she was leading him to at all. She was leading him to her gang of bandits. So they capture Conan, stake him to the ground, thinking about ways of how they're going to torture him. And Conan breaks loose. And he's about to leave the camp in the dead of night when a servant of the other necromancer shows up because he thinks Conan's trying to betray him about this jewel. He thinks that Conan may have the jewel and that he's going to go and sell it to somebody else. So this necromancer has entranced one of his people and he starts to fight Conan to try to kill him. Conan ends up taking him out, but during the battle it's mentioned about these pendants. So Conan tries to convince these bandits that, you know, they can get this 10,000 gold pieces and these pendants, and if they help him, they could be richly rewarded. So eventually he convinces them, or convinces the Red Hawk because she runs the show, and off they go tracking these pilgrims. So come to find out, they weren't actually pilgrims at all. They were a group of lizard men who works for Ammonar, and they're called Satara. So the Satara, they're back at Ammonar's keep, and he has the dancing girls and he has these 5 pendants. Well, he takes the important pendant with his soul and he puts it into a special box that he's created so the demon won't detect it. So in the meantime, the king of Zamora wants his treasures back, so he sends a captain of the cavalry off to track them down. And again, they had the same information that the things were stolen by these pilgrims. So we get everybody on the same trail. We have Conan and the bandits tracking down these lizard men, and behind him is the cavalry. So there's some interaction between the cavalry and the bandits. Conan kind of shows how he's kind of cagey, and he gets the bandits out of a tight situation with the cavalry, and they continue on towards the keep. Well, Ammonar finds out that there's people heading his way, so he sends a big group of the Satara off to bring them to the keep. So they kind of put on the face that he's friendly once they get to the keep, and he invites Conan and the Red Hawk into his holdings, and he offers them a job. The Red Hawk eventually accepts the offer, but Conan's still thinking about it. So during the night, Conan makes an attempt in to see if he can locate this dancing girl and the pendants, and he almost gets found out, and he gets back to camp, and Ammonar's at the camp, and he's trying to reassure all the bandits that, you know, he's a good guy, and if they came and worked for him, it would be profitable. So around the same time, the Satara, they take off away from the keep again, and they go and they capture cavalry captain along with a bunch of his men, and they bring them back. So the Red Hawk goes into the keep by herself, talking with Ammonar, and he puts her under a spell, and she's dancing around, not in control of herself. And then Conan sneaks in, tries to kill Ammonar, but he's rendered unconscious by this drug, and he's thrown into a cell. Well, in the cell is the captain, and a little later on, one of the bandits gets thrown in the cell. So Conan, he kind of is trying to figure out a way how to get out. So the cell keeper, he comes in, and he's starting to torture them, and Conan, he's acting like he's all freaked out and scared. And he gets close to Conan, and Conan ends up wrapping the chain around his neck and choking him out. Then they devise a plan of how they can retrieve the Red Hawk, the pendant, and get out and get clear of this necromancer. So as Conan gets back into the chambers, the necromancer is in the middle of a spell, bringing forward this demon, so the demon can eat the soul of the dancing girl. And at the same time, the second necromancer shows up, because he's trying to steal this jewel. So Ammonar, he gets the demon, who looks like a giant golden snake. He gets a hold of Impep Aton, the other necromancer, and squeezes the stuffing out of him. And then he turns his attention towards Conan. But Conan's standing there because he's got a hold of this jewel. And he ends up throwing the jewel into the demon's mouth. So Ammonar, he ends up freaking out. He bursts into blue flames. Then the demon bursts into blue flames. And the whole place starts to rock with earthquakes. So Conan grabs the dancing girl, takes off, meets up with the cavalry captain, who was trying to hold the gate so they could get out. They slayed a few Satara, but a lot of the Satara were preoccupied because at this very same time, a large group of hillmen came and they attacked the keep because the hillmen hated these Satara. So there was a lot going on. Conan eventually does get out along with the cavalry captain and the bandit that he was imprisoned with. So they say their goodbyes, and Conan takes the girl. He steals a couple of horses from the hillmen. There's a little bit of a twist at the end section that was a little bit out of character, which for the most part Robert Jordan stayed pretty true to Conan's character, except for that little bit at the end. So the cover is pretty good. It's a painted cover by Ron Wolofsky, back in the day when they actually painted covers, not like the covers that they have now. But it's a wraparound cover. Has the artist's depiction of what the demon moth any would look like. So it's nice to have, a decent cover. As far as Robert Jordan's writing, I enjoy Robert Jordan as an author. He can tell a good story. He sets a very good scene. And the first 2/3 of this book I really enjoyed. As far as pastiche goes, it was not too bad. But like a lot of Jordan stories, he kind of peters out sometimes at the end, or he drags things on. I found that the last third of the book just seemed to drag on. It wasn't nearly as entertaining as the first part, leading up to the two groups getting to the Necromancer's Keep. But one thing about Jordan, he obviously did some research, which is a little bit different than some of these authors that are writing Conan pastiche right now. Because Jordan did seem to have an understanding of the kingdoms in the Hyborian Age. And he understood Conan as a character. And it showed how Conan was strong, how he was loyal, how he's cagey. He wasn't just some dumb brute, that he had a brain. The one downside about it is that Conan seemed to be pretty worldly, pretty up to speed on things, and he's only 18 years old. So I didn't much care for that. I thought that not enough of Conan's spontaneous youth was kind of shining through. But it's a fun read. Didn't mind it at all. Well, there you have it. Robert Jordan's pastiche novel, Conan the Invincible. Not a bad pastiche. It did have a few issues, but I like the way Jordan writes. He can really set up a good scene, and he seems to understand Conan, and you feel like you are in the Hyborian Age. There was a couple of problems. Conan was a little bit out of character at the end, and there was a crazy battle between him and the lizard guy with lifting rocks, which was kind of silly and out of place. But overall, I enjoyed it. It was a fun read. If you have it on your bookshelf, dig it out, dust it off. And if you can find it in a used bookstore, buy it, read it, and enjoy it. And with that, I bid you farewell.